Man, a lot of stuff has happened since my hiatus. The Chicago Bears have a brand new coach in Ben Johnson. The Chicago Bulls are still looking to trade a few pieces. Chennedy Carter will not be back for the Chicago Sky, which is sad. And we'll touch base on the Blackhawks, Cubs, and White Sox right after the intro, of course. Missed y'all, man. Good morning, Chicago sports fans. Welcome to another episode of Chi-Town Sports Central, your number one spots for everything Chicago sports related. It's your boy, Big Kev, back in the building, man. It's been a minute. But me and my family were moving into a new home. Still got some things to do for my studio section. As you guys can see, none of my background situation is what it usually is, but we are a work in progress. Couldn't hold out any longer. Missed out on way too many headlines to not jump in and kick it with the gang. We're going to jump right into the content and discuss the Chicago Bears. Oh my goodness. Picking up Ben Johnson. I mean, listen, that was pretty much who the Chicago Bears wanted. We've been hearing Ben Johnson um all season long, since last season, really. The Chicago Bears, even though they still had Eberflus on under contract, Bears fans were clamoring for Ben Johnson to become the new coach. It's like the worst kept secret in football. They made it happen as soon as the Detroit Lions were eliminated from the playoffs unceremoniously in the first round. They took care of business and got their guy. A lot of Bears fans wanted Mike McCarthy. Some wanted Mike Vrabel, but they went with Ben Johnson instead. And I have to say, my first take on the situation is I am satisfied, cautiously optimistic even. You already know as Bears fans, especially considering how this season went, we cannot be overhyped about anything. But I will say that I appreciate the Chicago Bears going out and getting the number one candidate on pretty much every team that had a coaching vacancy and some teams that don't have a coaching vacancies list. Specifically the Oakland, the Las Vegas, the LA, the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, that's what they are this time. So yeah, the Raiders. We know that Tom Brady was clamoring for Ben Johnson as well. We heard so many rumors and takes and reports that Ben Johnson was most likely leaning toward Las Vegas, but as it turns out, he wanted to be a Chicago Bear, and it was cool to see the reception that he got entering into Hallis Hall on Monday or Tuesday, getting to work. So it was it's a great situation for Bears fans to end the year or the season on a win in Green Bay, to start the offseason with hiring a coach that we believe should at least help Caleb Williams develop properly, as well as Rome Odunze, as well as Cole Kmet, as well as DJ Moore, and someone who's going to put effort into making sure that the offensive line does the things they're supposed to do effectively. While the Detroit Lions have lost in the playoffs the last two seasons, he's been there for 3 years. The first year, they barely missed the playoffs with him there. They did prevent the Packers from going to the playoffs, though. Second year, they went to the NFC Championship, which I believe Dan Campbell was the reason they lost that game, because he kept going for it on fourth down instead of kicking field goals when they were leading against San Francisco. And this season, they ended up with the best record in the NFC and lost in the first round. Well, not the first round, but and lost their first game to a really good Washington team. So it's just not something that was expected. But I think as Bears fans, we can look at the overall body of work, but not just that game. Now, I will say, putting the ball in the hands of Jameson Williams to throw a potential touchdown, taking it out of Goff's hands, even though he did have turnovers, you don't give up on your quarterback in such a crucial moment. And that pretty much was the Detroit Lions season right there. It ended on that bad play call. But prior to that, we saw a bunch of great play calls. We saw a play that busted Jameson Williams for a great reverse touchdown run. We saw uh, Goff have pretty much his best season that I've ever really seen him have, with the exception of that 5 interception game that he had. But he was definitely in the MVP conversation as well. So Ben Johnson was the right move, and that's pretty much all we can ask for as Bears fans is to go after the guy who is supposed to be the guy, and he turned out to be at the top of our list, and we got him. So I'm not mad at Brian Poles, who's trying to save his job. I'm not mad at Kevin Warren, who's trying to save his job. And they did open up the purse books and immediately made him, Ben Johnson, that is, a top 10 paid coach in the league. So Bears fans, though, I do caution you, just temper expectations. It'll be cool to see the Bears win the Super Bowl and make it to the playoffs and all those good things. But let's not forget how good the NFC North is. Now, the rest of the NFC is not as good. Bears could have made it to the playoffs as a wild card, considering that there are teams that made it with, I think, 9 wins, 10 wins. So there's a chance that the Bears could do so. The whole NFC North could have made the playoffs this season had the Bears not been so abysmal and go on that long double-digit losing streak. But I digress. Let's see what the Bears do. First, free agency, which I'm glad they moved to before the draft, and second, the draft. Let's see who they can sign. The Bears have $66 million to play with, so it's going to be up to them to make all the right moves, all the right decisions. But Ryan Poles, they hit on the coach decision. We'll see how they iron out or shape out the rest of the coaching staff. But they can't afford any misses. The Bears need to bat 1,000 or at least in the high 90s if they're going to make the turnaround they need to make next season. So in free agency, we already know if they can figure out how to get one of the top offensive linemen over here, make it happen. If they can figure out how to get another edge rusher over here with experience, make it happen. They now in the draft, they have major draft capital. And I see a lot of people saying Ashton Genty, Ashton Genty, Ashton Genty. There's no point in drafting a running back if you don't have an offensive line. If the top offensive linemen are available, somebody out of LSU, somebody out of Alabama, somebody out of Ohio State, you go get those offensive linemen. We saw it last season where the Bears had an opportunity to trade out of the first pick and end up getting Jaden Daniels. They could have ended up getting the Jared Verses of the world. They could have ended up getting the offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, and they decided to go with offense, and with their first and ninth pick, and we saw how that turned out. There's nothing against Roma Dunze or Caleb Williams, but the Chicago Bears mortgaged their future on those two guys, and we'll see if it pays out in the end. All right, so y'all already know what it is. Head over to Chicago Bears Central, where my boy Hayes, Bobby, and C-Dub hold it down weekly. Steve and myself pop in and out as well for daily updates and analysis. All right, moving on to the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls have been just frustrating to watch as a team, losing pretty much all their home games in this stand that they had, and then going on the road and beating a really good um, LA Clippers team right after. It's just like I just don't know what to make of this team. They're now 19-25. They had an opportunity to make some hay, not just in their division, but in the Eastern Conference overall. But now they're sitting dead last, and not by a little bit. They're 3.5 games out of behind Detroit, 6.5 games or 5.5 behind Indiana, and 6.5 behind Milwaukee, and then of course everybody is behind Cleveland. We're 18 games out of first place. But the losing streak, it'll start with the Pacers because they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the last 7, 8 games now. But they listless against the Pacers on the road. Then they beat Washington to start their homestand. Then they lost 2 very winnable games. First versus the Kings, 124-119. Then versus the Pelicans, 119-113. And then they allowed the Atlanta Hawks to come into Chicago without Trae Young and kill them. 110-94 was an embarrassing loss. Then they lost to the Hornets. And let me tell you how bad this loss to the Hornets was. My son, 6 years old, hit me up on his iPad and said, "Daddy, the Chicago Bulls just lost to a team that they haven't lost to in over 2 years. That they've been beaten for 2 years, Daddy. I don't understand it. How did they lose that game? 125-123. LaMelo Ball gets his first win versus the Bulls in a long time. And then they go to Portland and lose to a young inexperienced Portland Trailblazers team. Just did not look good. Then they go out and beat the Clippers, and now they go on the road to play tomorrow to play the Warriors, and we already know what that's like playing against Golden State in Golden State. Not even sure when the last time the Bulls won in Golden State, or if they have, it's probably been a couple of times in the last 8 seasons or so. So this team is a reflection of their coach. I can't harp that enough. The whole shoot as many threes as possible mentality that the Bulls have come in this season has backfired. Um, Trading away Alex Caruso was a tremendous mistake because Josh Giddey is not. I mean, whatever he gives you offensively, it's not going to help the Bulls because of defense. The Bulls are one of, if not the worst, defensive team in the league, and it's rough watching this team go out every single night and just give up 120 plus points. And the only reason they're not the worst defensive team in the league still is because of the Washington Wizards. But the Washington Wizards have already beaten the Bulls. Um, and the Wizards, they lose by almost 15 points a game. The Portland Trailblazers are bad too, and they've been losing by double digits a lot, but the Bulls let them win. And just to watch them lose to teams that have less than 10 wins is crazy work. Crazy work. That's what we've been seeing by the Chicago Bulls, though. They don't play defense, and they're not good enough offensively to outscore teams. Even the worst teams come in and lay it on the Bulls. Right now, the Chicago Bulls are 8-15 at home. Just let that sink in. They had a chance to go to above 500 if they would have won a couple of these games that they've just lost, or at least get closer to 500. But they're 8-15 at home, and Chicago Bulls fans deserve better than that. There's no reason why you should be spending on a family of four upwards of $1,000 when you take into account travel, parking, tickets, food, concessions, buying merch, all of these things. There's no reason to drop $1,000 or more to watch your team lose. A team that's trying to sell you on, oh, we have what it takes to make the playoffs. We have what it takes to be a fifth seed, and so on and so forth. So it's time to make some moves. It's time to make some moves. It's time to make some moves. And listen, Chicago, it's so many different trade ideas out there that we'll touch on a couple of them. Some people are saying that there's a 3-team trade in which the Chicago Bulls could work with the Golden State Warriors and the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves would get Lonzo Ball, Buddy Hield, Julian Phillips, and a trade exception from Julius Randle. The Bulls would get Julius Randle, Jonathan Kuminga, Kevon Looney, Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton II, Luka Garza, $20 million trade exception from Nikola Vucevic, and a $2.8 million trade exception from Torrey Craig, where the Warriors would get Vooch, Patrick Williams, Torrey Craig, Taylor Horton Tucker, and a $9.1 million trade exception. And honestly, I would not be mad at that trade. The Chicago Bulls would get at least a proven scorer from Timberwolves and Julius Randle, who basically is, I guess, a younger, somewhat more athletic Vucevic type, a big who can shoot the three and get his points in the inside. A blossoming potential star who definitely would be much better than Patrick Williams and Jonathan Kuminga, and a championship winning veteran and Kevon Looney, who's going to come in and do his job, give you his rebounds, give you points around the basket. Kyle Anderson, aka Slow Mo, is a veteran who does his job. Gary Payton Jr., athletic but injury prone, and Luka Garza, who was really really good in college and just a decent role player in the NBA, and then a couple of bucks off their books. So I wouldn't be mad at that trade for the Chicago Bulls. And it's just one of them things, man. The Bulls have a lot of work to do, and this team right here is not. It's just not it. It's just not it. The Bulls are definitely going to be sellers at the trade deadline. So we saw the trade. idea with the Golden State Warriors. Now there's another one that the Bulls could possibly do with the Houston Rockets. Trading Lonzo Ball and getting Jashawn Tate, Jeff Green, 2026 second round pick and 2027 second round pick from Memphis, and the Rockets would get Lonzo Ball. Um, Now, Lonzo Ball would definitely fit into the Ime Udoka equation really well. He plays defense. He's not out there stat hunting. But the Chicago Bulls would just basically be doing a salary dump there. And then you got uh, who is this? What team is this? I'm not even gonna cover that one. But it looks like the Bulls are trying to get rid of Kobe White and Torrey Craig to the Magic, and then the Nets would be a third player, and the Bulls would get DeAnthony Melton, Caleb Houston, and some draft picks. But the point is, the Chicago Bulls are just not good enough to keep this core together. This core of Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic. Nobody really wants Zach LaVine, although he's playing some of the best basketball he's played in years. So it looks like the Bulls are going to be stuck with him for at least another season or so. And if they're going to do anything toward becoming a better team, they got to start to accumulate assets, younger players, hungrier players. Patrick Williams has to go, and they got to draft better. And frankly, they're going to need to use this top 10 draft pick that they have this season to start to get better, because Matas Buzelis is still a project who needs to develop. He hasn't shown enough consistency yet to prove that he's the future. Josh Giddey hasn't shown anything, for me at least, that that warrants a $30 million per year contract, 30 million plus contract for him. Which means we basically gave up Alex Caruso for nothing because we weren't able to recoup any trades, any picks in that trade, which is crazy because OKC has a bevy of them. And finally, man, it's time for Vooch to go. Like, it's not that he's a bad player, but if you can turn him into more valued assets, you got to do it, because we didn't do it with DeRozan and pretty much let him go for nothing as well. So it's time for the Chicago Bulls to make some moves, and I'm not talking about on the court. I'm talking about in the general manager situation. So y'all already know what it is. If you want to hear anything else about the Chicago Bulls, head on over to Chicago Bulls Central, where my boy Hayes is holding it down daily. And speaking of Hayes and Bobby, Chicago Sky, man, I hate to say this. I did not want to see this happen, but Chennedy Carter will no longer be a Chicago Sky member. And frankly, the Chicago Sky are putting it out there that it was locker room issues, attitude issues that led to the decision. And that she was Chicago Sky leading scorer. And the sickness that she got toward the end of the season is pretty much the reason why Chicago Sky, excuse me, thank you to anybody who said bless you. But Chicago Sky did not win a lot of games down the stretch because of injuries. Angel got hurt, Kennedy got sick, and they just couldn't get any wins toward the end of the season, and it allowed the Atlanta Dream to make it to the playoffs. But yeah, Kennedy Carter was the engine that had to help this team go. She averaged over 17 points a game. She got you assists when she needed to get the assist. And it's unfortunate to see that she will no longer be a part of this team moving forward, because we really, really enjoyed watching her play basketball over here on Chicago Sky Central, the Chi-Town Sports Network. And, you know, it, it's, uh, it's rough, man. Honestly, it's rough. So I wish her the best wherever she goes. Hope she lands somewhere and plays well. But they just did not offer her a qualifying offer before the deadline, and it just didn't work out. So I think she said on Twitter or X, I came to a new organization, Chicago. I was embraced. I was loved. I came from playing 8 minutes in LA to taking a lot of people's spots, doing a lot of things for the organization that I really respect and love. Um, and then the narratives of me not being happy and this and that can't possibly be true. Carter said everything in Chicago typically went right for me. There was nothing that I could say, oh, I didn't like the way they did this. Everything was really cool. So, she's over there playing in China right now, and she went on to call her time in Chicago one of the best seasons she's played in the WNBA. Now, we know that she averaged 17 and a half points, 3.5 rebounds, and one steal a game. And she shot almost 50% from the field, and she did her thing. So shout out to Kennedy Carter, man. It sucks to see her go. She I hate it. I hate to see this happen, man. Like I don't care what the narrative is about the locker room, and frankly, I believe the reason why this is happening is because the Chicago Sky have this top 3 pick, and they want whoever they draft to come in and pretty much run the team. The new coach is looking forward to developing that player and allowing that player to have a big voice in the locker room, along with Angel Reese and Cardoso. And it's not lost on us that when he was doing his introductory, he mentioned that Angel Reese and Cardoso were cornerstones and left out Chennedy Carter. But now we see exactly why, because she was not meant to be a cornerstone of this franchise. So y'all already know if y'all want to hear anything else about the Chicago Sky, head on over to Chicago Sky Central, where Hayes and Steve-O hold it down. All right, so Chicago Blackhawks. Listen, the Chicago Blackhawks are it's just rough. They lost again, a 4-3 overtime loss to the Hurricanes the other day, and they're just a bad team. It's frustrating to see because they do get some unexpected wins. They beat the Golden Knights 5-3 the other day, but it's just not. They just don't have enough right now. Now, Connor Bedard though is worth watching. Heading out to the United Center to catch them live is worth doing. It's over half of the season gone already, and look, they're done already. They only have 15 wins, and 4 overtime losses, 28 losses as well. It's just not good. In fact, I believe they might be the worst team. Oh no, the Sharks only have 14 wins, so at least they're not the absolute worst team in hockey, but they are one of the worst teams in hockey. So, listen, it's not much to say about the Blackhawks over here on this channel, but you can always head on over to Chicago Blackhawks Central to catch up with the gang over there and see how they're feeling. Uh, Moving on to the Chicago Cubs as we get ready to wrap up this episode. Y'all already know how I feel about the Cubs. The Chicago White Sox are my team, but I rock with the Cubs pretty heavily as well. And my boy Mike is doing his thing over on Chicago Cubs Central. But Chicago Cubs missed out on Sasaki. They did just sign another reliever in Trevor Richards to a minor league deal. And that's pretty much it. The Chicago Cubs basically are just trying to shore up their bullpen. They have their offense ready. They have their lineup ready. They're just trying to make little tweaks here and there to make a push for not only just the NL Central, but the National League and possibly a run to the World Series if everything falls into place, health, coaching, and all of those good things as well. So we're going to see how they can do. As far as the White Sox are concerned, about to get back into action over on that channel and just discuss the roster, the lineup. Spring training is less than a month away for the Chicago Cubs. They head over to Japan to take on the Japanese Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, of course. But and the White Sox are basically just still licking their wounds, trying to figure out how bad they're going to be this upcoming season. All right, so there you have it. Appreciate you guys for the long wait. But we are back in action. So you will see me at least tomorrow, hopefully, Steve-O. And then we won't be seeing Q for a little while because he has some family business to take care of. But, family comes first, and then we get you guys in. All right, it's your boy Big Kev. On behalf of Q and Steve-O, this has been another episode of Chi-Town Sports Central. Don't forget to follow the rest of the Chi-Town Sports family. Just type in your favorite Chicago sports team and put the word Central behind it. And of course, you got the Shy Bulls podcast with C-Dub and Bobby holding it down with daily news and updates for the Chicago Bulls and the best live calls you'll ever see on YouTube or anywhere else with C-Dub doing your live calls for the Chicago Bulls. And then you also have NBA Central, where Hayes has been holding it down over there. But my new work schedule kicks in next week, so I should be able to start doing my nightly episodes again. All right, we're going to holler at you guys next time. Peace.